When I went to pick up my daughter from school, she told others that I was their nanny. She even shouted at me, "You're embarrassing. Don't come to school looking like that." I was furious. When I got home, I immediately complained to Nathan, but instead of supporting me, he snapped, "Well, if both of you think I'm such an embarrassment, I'll just spend all my time and money on beauty treatments and new clothes. Let's see how that goes. And as for being the free nanny, whoever wants the job can have it." The very next day, I stopped doing everything. Carter's clothes weren't washed, his homework wasn't done, and he was late to school. My little prince went from being the class favorite to looking like a scruffy kid from the wrong side of town. Nathan stormed at me. "You're just making excuses to go to work and not even taking care of our son. Vivian, how can you be so selfish?" I calmly replied, "Oh, really?" Both Nathan and Carter were about to lose it. When we got home from school, I sat on the couch with a cold expression. I didn't cook dinner, didn't clean, didn't wash a single piece of clothing. Carter, as usual, didn't think he had done anything wrong. He expected everything to continue like normal. "Mom, I'm hungry. Hurry up and make dinner," he demanded. I shot him a look and said, "Don't call me Mom. I'm not your mom." Carter's face flushed with anger. I had promised him burgers and fried chicken after school, but after his performance at the school gate, those plans were gone. Earlier, I had seen Carter chatting with Lily, laughing like nothing else mattered. Next to Lily was her mom, Sophia Whitman, looking effortlessly stylish. I walked over, intending to greet her, but the second Carter saw me, his face dropped. He jumped right in front of me, cutting me off, and loudly proclaimed, "This is our nanny. You don't need to talk to her." Then he turned and yelled at me again. "You look so embarrassing. Don't come to school looking like that." It was pickup time, and other parents passing by gave me curious looks. Sophia Whitman's face was full of surprise as she glanced at me with concern, slightly raising her brows. I looked down at my faded clothes. Between taking care of the house and family, I hadn't had time to dress up. My ungrateful little brat had the nerve to be ashamed of me, but I wasn't going to take it lying down. I slapped some sense into him, hard. Carter's face turned beet red. I mumbled an apology to Sophia and walked away without looking back. Carter, in a panic, came running after me, wailing, probably realizing I wasn't going to take him for fried chicken anymore. As if I was going to give him anything at all. At that moment, he could have looked like fried chicken for all I cared. When we got home, Carter locked himself in his room and gave me a dirty look. I looked around at the dirty laundry and the messy living room and sank deep into thought. It had been 7 years since I became a full-time mom. I gave up my job for Carter. Every little thing, meals, laundry, school, health, was all on me. But today, the way he acted made me realize all my efforts were for nothing. Why had I sacrificed so much? When I refused to make him dinner, Carter lost it completely. He threw himself on the floor and started screaming. "I wasn't wrong. You don't even have a job. What's the difference between you and a nanny? I'm telling Dad." To my shock, when Nathan heard the story, he frowned, his eyes full of disappointment as he looked at me. "Why are you making such a big deal over what a kid says? You promised him fried chicken today." No wonder Carter's upset. "Nathan, are you serious?" I couldn't believe it. "Your son has serious issues, and when I try to teach him a lesson, somehow it's my fault?" Nathan's face showed nothing but annoyance. "Carter's just a kid. What does he know? But you've let him go hungry this long. That's on you." Carter smirked, glancing at me while whining to Nathan about wanting fried chicken. Before the two of them could head out, I yelled, "If either of you walks out that door today, I'm done with this house." The only response I got was the slam of the door and the sound of their laughter fading down the street. I collapsed onto the couch, tears running down my face. 7 years of my life. All for nothing. Every day, I'd wake up early, cook, clean, take care of Carter, and do all the household chores. My workload wasn't any less than Nathan's, but now neither of them appreciated me. Well, if they think I'm so embarrassing, I'm done. I'll spend my time and money on self-care and clothes. Let's see who misses me then. After making up my mind, I tossed Nathan's stuff into the guest room. There was no way I was sleeping next to that man for another minute. I called up Bianca and we made dinner plans. Nathan took Carter out for fried chicken, so I wasn't going to hold back either. After dinner, Bianca and I hit River Crest Shopping Mall. I had years of missed self-care to make up for. Newest skincare set? Bought. Trendy clothes and bags? Yes, please. Gym membership and spa package? Got them both. Bianca watched me spend money like water, her eyes wide in disbelief. "Vivian, aren't you worried Nathan's going to lose it?" I admired my purchases with satisfaction. "Who cares? I'm spending my own savings. He has no say in it." I posted a picture of my shopping haul on Instagram to celebrate this new chapter of my life. But then, I saw that Nathan had already posted something first. He tagged me too with a snarky caption. "Took Carter out for fried chicken. He says I'm his favorite." In the picture, they were smiling, faces pressed together in front of a table full of junk food. Typical. I rolled my eyes. Every time I tried to discipline Carter, Nathan played the good guy. So despite me spending every day taking care of Carter, it was Nathan whom Carter adored. I gave the post a sarcastic like and went to grab drinks with Bianca. We spent the evening mingling with some charming guys who kept calling us ladies in that flirtatious tone that made me feel young again. Dancing in the club released all the stress I had built up during the day. Carter might still be young and need guidance, but as his mom, I couldn't just abandon him. I'd have to rethink how I raised him. When I got home at 11 p.m., I was ready to make some changes in our dynamic. But instead of being in bed, the house was still brightly lit. Carter was up, playing with his toys in the living room, way past his bedtime. I always made sure he was asleep by 8 p.m. for school the next day. But here it was 11 p.m., and he was acting like it was the middle of the day. Furious, I roared, "Carter Summers, do you have any idea what time it is? You've got school tomorrow." Normally, Carter would have jumped into bed the moment I raised my voice. But tonight, he actually had the nerve to shout back. "You're the one who doesn't keep your promises. Why do I have to listen to you? You just sit around at home all day, living off Dad's money. You're pathetic." Nathan's face twisted with anger. I knew exactly what to say to hit him where it hurt. As his wife, I knew him better than anyone. He'd always been envious of Bianca's success, trying to cozy up to her crowd, but they didn't want anything to do with him. "You're insane." Nathan spat. "Sleep it off, you're clearly out of your mind." He stormed out of the room. I laughed to myself. He probably thought his silent treatment would terrify me. Little did he know I was relishing the freedom of being alone. The next morning I was woken by Carter's cries. When I checked the clock, it was already 8 a.m. Well, someone's late. I stretched luxuriously in bed, savoring the fact that I didn't have to rush out of bed to make breakfast for anyone. Carter had tripped over his toys and split his forehead open. He lay on the floor, clutching his head, wailing, expecting someone to come to his rescue. Nathan came stumbling out of the master bedroom, looking disheveled and clearly panicked by the scene. Carter ran into his arms, bawling, "Dad, I'm late. I'm going to lose points for being late." Nathan was just as unprepared, having clearly just woken up himself. He never thought I'd actually stop taking care of Carter. Seeing me standing there watching the scene, Nathan snapped. "Why are you just standing there? Go grab a Band-Aid. Can't you see Carter's hurt?" I yawned and glanced at them. "Oh, he's got a scar now. Too bad. Guess it's gonna leave a mark." Carter was always so conscious of his appearance, and now with a gash on his forehead, he was crying like the world had ended. Nathan saw I wasn't going to help, so he started looking for the Band-Aids himself. After practically tearing the house apart, he still couldn't find one. Frustrated and red-faced, he shouted, "Where the hell are the Band-Aids? You hid them, didn't you?" I rolled my eyes. "If they're right in front of you and you can't see them, that's on you. Don't go blaming me because you're blind." Nathan was furious, looking like he might charge at me. But he quickly realized now wasn't the time because Carter was really late for school. Carter attended Maplewood Academy, a private school where the other kids were from well-off families, all used to following the rules. Being late was practically unheard of. To make matters worse, Lily Whitman, the girl Carter liked, was the class's discipline monitor. If he was late, she'd surely look down on him. Nathan hurriedly dressed Carter, who stood there looking helpless. "Where are my clothes?" Nathan asked. I barely glanced at him. Before, I'd always have freshly washed and ironed clothes neatly laid out on the sofa for him. But now, remembering all those times I tried to be the perfect wife, made me want to slap myself. "They're on my face," I said sarcastically as I turned on the TV and started my morning yoga. Nathan shot me a death glare, grabbed some mismatched clothes from wherever he could find them, and with his hair a mess, dragged Carter out the door. Neither of them had eaten breakfast, and Carter's complaints about being hungry echoed down the hall as they left. Meanwhile, I leisurely ordered myself a deluxe breakfast delivery, completed my yoga session, and enjoyed my meal at a slow pace. Just as I finished, my phone started ringing. It was Ms. Valerie Harper, Carter's teacher. I let the phone ring, then hung up. Carter wasn't my problem anymore. Why should I care about his school issues? Ms. Harper was persistent, though. After several missed calls, she sent a text. "Mrs. Summers, what is going on at your house today?" Carter not only arrived late, but he didn't wear his uniform. He looked filthy, like he hadn't washed his face. And what's more, he didn't even do his homework. "Is this how you raise your child? You need to come to school immediately." I was tempted to ignore her, but knowing she wouldn't let it go, I replied, "I'm divorced from his dad. Carter isn't my responsibility anymore, so let's just delete each other's contacts. Goodbye and good luck." I immediately blocked Ms. Harper's number. The peace and quiet that followed was bliss. My phone was finally mine again. Before heading out, I went to the bathroom and saw Carter's uniform soaking in the washer, completely ruined. The floor was flooded, and it looked like the machine had given up on life, just like the rest of my household. Nathan sure had a talent for destroying things. By the time I arrived at Bianca's company for my interview, I was right on time. The process went smoothly, and and I felt like I was stepping back into my college days. The job was for an assistant in the finance department, a position that would let me learn the ropes and get a feel for the company's inner workings. On my way out of the building, I passed by a woman and caught a whiff of a familiar scent. I turned to see who it was, but my phone rang before I could figure it out. It was a call from my second job. 7 years as a stay-at-home mom hadn't given me many marketable skills, but if there was one thing I could do, it was helping kids with their homework. Rather than waste my energy on an ungrateful brat like Carter, I'd much rather teach kids who actually listen and get paid for it. At this point, every penny I earned was tied directly to my sense of dignity. Because let's be real, if you're not financially independent as a woman, no matter how much you sacrifice, they'll still label you as lazy. I arrived at the client's house and couldn't believe my eyes. My tutoring student was none other than Lily Whitman, Carter's crush. Lily was a sweet, polite girl. She listened carefully and never got frustrated while working through problems. We finished her homework smoothly, and I even helped her memorize a poem. Right as we wrapped up, her mother, Sophia Whitman, walked in. She was thrilled and grabbed my hand, thanking me profusely. "You're Carter's mom, right? You look so young. I've heard wonderful things about how great you are at tutoring. Name your price, whatever you want, it's yours." I smiled and agreed. Sophia was a single mom and a powerhouse at work. We had an unspoken understanding not to bring up the awkward scene from yesterday at school. We hit it off immediately, and when she found out I was no longer a stay-at-home mom, she was even more excited. "Good for you. A woman's place is out there in the world, not stuck at home. What's the point of staying in all day?" I was about to politely excuse myself, but she insisted I stay for dinner. I couldn't refuse, and we ended up having a lively conversation about everything from career building to parenting and how to balance both. By the time I got home, it was already dark. I walked in, still in a great mood, but the atmosphere in the house was thick with tension. Nathan was sitting on the couch, scowling, while Carter sat nearby, glaring at me with his arms crossed. The place was a disaster. Dirty socks thrown everywhere, and the floor was sticky and gross. I didn't even acknowledge them as I kicked off my shoes and headed toward my bedroom. Nathan was the first to break the silence. "Do you even know Carter was late today? And he didn't do his homework, so he had to stand in the hallway all class. The teacher called me at work to complain, and now I have to explain all this. What do you have to say for yourself?" Carter piped up, full of self-pity. "It's all your fault. Lily said I looked filthy and didn't want to talk to me." I laughed. "So, if your teacher is mad, that's between you and her. What does that have to do with me?" Nathan's face turned beet red, his veins bulging with anger. But he still tried to hold back his fury. "Vivian, how long are you going to keep this up? You really think we can't manage without you? You're not as irreplaceable as you seem to think." By now, I could tell that no matter how bad things got, they thought I was just throwing a tantrum. Little did they know I'd already checked out. Carter, emboldened by Nathan's support, got even more cocky. "You're just a bad woman. You can't beat me. You live off my dad's money, so you have to do whatever we say." And Nathan, being the fool he was, didn't even see anything wrong with what his son had just said. I was done. "Well, I found a job. I start next week. Whatever happens from now on, don't come to me for help." Nathan's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're going to work and leave your own son to fend for himself? Vivian, how can you be so selfish?" I simply responded, 6. "What? What's that supposed to mean?" he stammered, caught off guard. Mimicking his dismissive tone, I said, "If that's how you want to see it, there's nothing I can do about it." Nathan was stunned into silence. I continued, "You've been raising hell and driving away all the good things in your life. If you're tired of this marriage, just file for a divorce." With that, I walked into my bedroom, not giving a second thought to the shock on their faces. I thought the divorce was inevitable at this point. But then, to my surprise, Nathan brought his mother, Margaret Summers, into the mix. Margaret had spent her entire life being pampered by her late husband. After he passed, she quickly found another man to take care of her, never lifting a finger to care for herself. She certainly wasn't the type to help out around the house. Right around lunchtime, she knocked on my door. "Vivian, what are we eating for lunch?" She looked at me eagerly, clearly expecting me to cook for her. I barely looked up from my work. "I'm not hungry. You don't need to make anything for me." Margaret stood there, dumbfounded for a minute, then pouted like a child. "But I'm hungry. It's lunchtime already. You're not going to cook." She batted her lashes, tears welling up as if she were on the verge of crying. It was clear to me why men fell for her act. She was the ultimate damsel in distress. Too bad I wasn't an old man ready to fall for her games. If anything, it just made me want to puke. Without another glance, I continued with my work. Margaret, realizing she wasn't going to get what she wanted, huffed and left the room. I could tell she was heading off to tattle. Sure enough, not even 5 minutes later, Nathan barged in, shouting at the top of his lungs. "Vivian, I've put up with your nonsense for long enough. I get it if you're mad at me and Carter, But what did my mom ever do to deserve this? You're treating her like dirt. Carter, of course, couldn't miss the chance to pile on. I don't want you as my mom anymore. I want Rachel Sinclair to be my new mom. Nathan's face went from furious to panicked, and he quickly tried to cover Carter's mouth. But it was too late. I had heard everything. Rachel Sinclair, huh? So, Nathan had the nerve to cheat on me. Honestly, I couldn't care less. It felt like the trash was finally being taken out. Feigning ignorance, I gave them a mocking smile. Fine by me. Let's divorce today. You can all get out tomorrow. Nathan's face turned red with embarrassment, and even Margaret looked uneasy. The house was mine, and no matter how things went down, I was the one staying, while they'd be the ones kicked out. Nathan, clearly shaken, snapped, "You'll regret this. When I become rich, you'll come begging me, and I won't take you back." I stared at him, amazed at his delusional thinking. "You? Rich?" I laughed, kicking him lightly. "You've got to be kidding. You wouldn't know what to do with money if it fell into your lap." Ignoring Margaret and Carter's tearful protests, I walked out the door. I had better things to do than argue with fools. I headed straight to Sophia Whitman's house. It was the weekend, and she had booked an afternoon tutoring session for Lily. Spending time with well-behaved kids like Lily was a breeze. The hours flew by. At around 4, there was an online class test, and Sophia insisted I stay for dinner afterward. I couldn't say no, especially since I wanted to see how well Lily did. As expected, Lily's scores came in at the top of the class. Meanwhile, Carter, with no one to help him, had slipped to the bottom. I remembered when Lily's grades hovered around the top 10, so seeing her reach the top spot was a pleasant surprise. Sophia, overjoyed, raised my hourly rate and sent me home with endless gratitude. When I returned to the house, it was empty. Nathan and Margaret were nowhere to be found. The only one left was Carter, sitting on the couch with red-rimmed eyes. I had zero interest in asking what was wrong. I walked right past him toward my room. But Carter's voice stopped me in my tracks, trembling with emotion. "Mom, you don't love me anymore, do you?" His voice shook, but all I could think was how ridiculous he sounded. Where was all this emotion when he was tearing me down? Now suddenly he cared about being loved? But I decided to play along, just to see where this was going. "What's the problem?" At the sound of my response, Carter broke down, crying genuine tears. For a moment, I felt a twinge of guilt in my heart. After all, I had raised him for 7 years. "Lily said you're her tutor. You love her now, don't you?" "You don't love me anymore." I didn't hesitate. "Well, Lily's well-behaved. Who wouldn't love a child like that?" Hearing my honest admission, Carter's face twisted in anger. "No. Even if you divorce Dad, you can only love me. How dare you love anyone else?" His voice was hysterical, and his expression was filled with rage. At that moment, whatever maternal instinct I had left vanished. Selfish people never look at their own faults. They only try to control others. I scoffed. "The more you act like this, the less I'll like you. Cry all you want." Carter's sobs grew louder, and in his fury, he grabbed a pillow and threw it at me. I tossed it right back, knocking him down. Did he think just because I was his mom, I wouldn't hit back? Carter leaped at me in a fit of rage. That's when Nathan and Margaret walked in, only to find me pinning Carter down on the couch, giving him the spanking of his life. Margaret shrieked but was too scared to step in. Nathan, on the other hand, looked like he wanted to scold me but froze when I shot him a cold glare. I glanced at the bags. They were carrying new clothes, of course. 3 people who couldn't figure out how to use a washing machine would obviously need to buy replacements. My gaze lingered on a bag that had women's lingerie in it. Carter, seeing his dad as a savior, ran toward Nathan, sobbing. "Mom's tutoring Lily, and now she doesn't care about me anymore." Nathan's face was grim, clearly having heard from Ms. Harper again. "Vivian, how could you ignore your own son to tutor someone else's kid? What kind of mother are you?" I raised an eyebrow, amused by Nathan's audacity. "He's the one who said he didn't want my help. Did you already forget?" Carter froze, then began crying again, realizing his mistake. Nathan didn't dare say anything else. I glanced at the lingerie bag again, and Nathan quickly tried to hide it behind his back, guilt written all over his face. Though I hadn't figured out who Nathan's mistress was, bringing home lingerie was all the proof I needed that the day of reckoning wasn't far off. "You can't just dash. Can I?" I cut him off. "You've lived like this for 7 years. If you can, why can't I?" Nathan had no response. I smiled. Life must be so easy for men like Nathan. He worked a basic job, brought home a paycheck, and didn't have to worry about anything else. Meanwhile, I was juggling all the responsibilities of the household. Feeling smug, I hummed a little tune and walked back to my room, ignoring Margaret's accusatory glares. Nathan's workload was about to increase tenfold, and Margaret? She'd soon find out what it's like to actually take care of Carter. The luxury life she's been living? That's about to take a hard turn. The next day, I started my new job at Bianca's company. She assigned me to report to the head of finance, Rachel Sinclair. Oh, the irony. It didn't take long for me to recognize that familiar scent from before. I'd smelled it on Nathan too. Rachel, as it turned out, was Nathan's mistress. It all clicked. Carter had mentioned Aunt Rachel before, but I hadn't connected the dots until now. This was perfect. Now, with both Nathan and his affair right under my nose, I could keep an eye on everything. Convenient, right? Rachel, meanwhile, had no clue who I really was. At work, I was just a newly divorced woman, desperate to get back on her feet. Everyone in the office looked at me with a hint of pity in their eyes, assuming I was some helpless victim. Little did they know I had a plan. Rachel wasn't shy about asking prying questions once she learned I was divorced and didn't have custody of Carter. It didn't take her long to start probing. So, how often do you see your son? Do you think your ex-husband will ever have another kid? She would even drop hints like, are you planning to fight for custody? I mean, wouldn't that be difficult, especially with your ex-husband involved? It didn't take a genius to see what she was after. She was fishing for information, hoping to figure out how much of a threat I was. Every time she tried, I'd act devastated, but always managed to work in a comment about how much I'd be asking for in child support if I did fight for custody. I'd definitely make sure to ask for the maximum in child support, I'd say. If I can't spend Nathan's money, his new girlfriend certainly won't be getting her hands on it either. Rachel's face would tighten every time I mentioned that. I could practically see her spiraling, worried about what her future with Nathan might look like. She started to panic, afraid that she might not get what she wanted after all. My little comments must have worked, because before long, she looked like she was going to push Nathan to divorce me ASAP. I had always wondered what Rachel saw in Nathan. She was older than I expected for a mistress, but other than that, she was attractive, successful, and seemingly had her life together. So why him? It wasn't until a company meeting that I figured it out. Our company and Nathan's firm were working together on a major project. And guess who the two project leaders were? That's right, Nathan and Rachel. I immediately smelled something fishy. I asked Bianca for access to the project files and spent an entire night digging into the details. And what I found was shocking. Our company was responsible for providing the funding for the project, while Nathan was leading the implementation on his end. And of course, Nathan and Rachel had teamed up to falsify reports and skim money off the top. Despite how carefully they tried to cover their tracks, I found discrepancies hidden in the most obscure parts of the documentation. After crunching the numbers, I realized that if this project went through as planned, they would pocket over $1 million. No wonder Nathan had been so confident when he said he was going to become rich. Now I understood exactly what he meant. I immediately shared the information with Bianca. Her first instinct was to call the police and shut down the project. But I had a better idea. I think this is the perfect opportunity to settle my divorce, I told her. And if we get rid of those two crooks, the project could still be highly profitable. I began gathering evidence of Rachel and Nathan's little scheme. Rachel would often sneak off to the stairwell to call Nathan, and her voice was always dripping with flirtation. She couldn't help but mention their plans for after they cashed out. I recorded every conversation. Not only did I have proof of the financial scam, but now I had solid evidence of Nathan's infidelity, too. After consulting with my lawyer, I realized I had the upper hand in the divorce. Not only could I kick Nathan and his entire family out of my house, but I could demand compensation for all the years I'd spent managing the household and caring for Carter. Feeling pretty good, I decided to give Rachel a little nudge. You know, I said casually one day, when I got divorced, I managed to reclaim every penny my ex-husband spent on his mistress. I even got half of his savings. So really, I didn't come out too badly. Rachel's face turned pale. She looked like she was going to lose it. Sure enough, that night, Nathan rushed to me with divorce papers in hand. Margaret, always playing the role of the concerned mother-in-law, sat beside him. If you're getting divorced, she said haughtily, then we need to split things fairly. This house was your marital home, so half of it belongs to Nathan. And let's not forget, my son has been supporting you all these years. You owe him for every penny. Nathan, puffed up with confidence, added, Vivian, I've spent at least $100,000 on you over the past 7 years. You'll have to pay me back in full. I couldn't help but laugh. I calmly handed over the legal documents. Sure, let the court decide. As Nathan and Margaret read through the lawyer's documents, their faces fell. It became very clear to them that they were in way over their heads. I hadn't spent a single cent of Nathan's money. Everything he claimed to have spent on me had actually gone toward Carter, his private school tuition, extracurriculars, expensive clothes, and everything else that came with being a privileged kid. And now, Nathan would have to pay me compensation for all the years I had served as both a nanny and housekeeper working 24/7 with no pay. As for the house, I had no intention of asking for rent, but if they thought they could take half of it from me, they were delusional. Watching the two of them squirm was deeply satisfying. If you want to prepare anything else, feel free, I told them. You can hire a lawyer if you'd like, but this case is pretty straightforward. I've got all the receipts. Nathan's face turned a deep shade of red. He had thought he was fully prepared for the divorce, but he hadn't counted on me being so thorough. And with Rachel breathing down his neck, he was feeling the pressure. If he didn't settle this divorce quickly, he risked losing that $1 million payout. With no other options left, Nathan reluctantly agreed to my terms. After all, compared to what he stood to gain, $100,000 seemed like nothing. The next day we finalized the divorce. Luckily, there was no waiting period in our state, so we didn't have to drag it out for another month. Nathan managed to scrape together the money he owed me, though I had no idea where he got it from, and paid me off. At work, Rachel was a mess. One minute she was smiling like an idiot, the next she looked like she was about to cry. It didn't take long to figure out why. She had been the one to foot the bill for Nathan's divorce. It was almost admirable, really. She had been willing to pay for the privilege of becoming Nathan's new wife. The lengths some people would go to. In the office, she started dropping hints about buying a new house and asking for advice from colleagues. When someone joked, "Rachel, are you getting married?" she blushed and didn't deny it. Nathan asked for a couple of days to move out. He took Carter and Margaret with him, which was just fine by me. That evening, when I got home, I wasn't surprised to find Rachel waiting for me. She had spent all that money to win Nathan, of course. She'd want to rub it in. But when she saw me walk through the door, her eyes nearly popped out of her head. "Vivian, what are you doing here? You're divorced, aren't you?" I calmly hung my bag by the door. Yes, we finalized the divorce yesterday. By now, most of Nathan's and Carter's things had been packed up. Carter came running toward me, tears streaming down his face. "Mom, please don't make me leave. I promise I'll be good from now on." Rachel recognized Carter immediately. It hit her then who I was, who Carter was, and her face twisted in fury. "You knew about me and Nathan this whole time? You let me fall into your trap, didn't you?" I smiled, unbothered. "Of course. I've been playing you this whole time." At this point, there was no point in hiding the truth. Nathan walked in just in time to see the confrontation. Without thinking, he immediately sided with Rachel. "Vivian, what did you say to her? We're divorced. You can't keep causing problems. All you're doing is making me hate you more." Rachel perked up at his words, feeling confident now that Nathan was defending her. She shot me a smug, victorious look. I sighed, gently pushing Carter away from me. "Go to your mommy now, Carter. Isn't this what you wanted?" Carter collapsed into tears, clinging to me as Rachel awkwardly tried to comfort him. But Carter was inconsolable, and he turned his frustration on her just like he had once done to me. Rachel wasn't prepared for that level of chatos. I looked at them with a smirk, then casually walked back to my bedroom, where I had prepared a special gift for Nathan, Rachel, and their entire little scheme. I shot off an email to Jackson Reed, Nathan's company CEO, attaching all the evidence I'd collected of Nathan and Rachel's embezzlement. The next morning, there was a meeting between our two companies to discuss the project. Previously, as a low-level finance assistant, I would have never set foot in that room. But today, things were different. Dressed in a sharp business suit, I entered the conference room, coffee in hand, and took a seat right at the front. Nathan and Rachel were already there, and from the looks on their faces, it was clear things hadn't gone well for them the night before. Neither of them even bothered with the usual pleasantries. When Rachel saw me sitting at the head of the table, her eyes widened in disbelief. "Vivian, what the hell are you doing? That's the CEO's seat. You're still on probation as a finance assistant, you can leave now." Nathan stared at her, starting to put the pieces together. He finally realized that I was the one who had been giving Rachel all that questionable advice. But with other colleagues in the room, he couldn't bring up the personal drama. I just smiled, giving Rachel a pointed look. "How's life as a stepmom treating you, Rachel?" She was seething, about to retort, when Bianca and Mr. Reed walked into the room. The moment Bianca saw me, her eyes lit up, and without caring who was watching, she gave me a big hug. "Vivian, I'm so glad you're finally back to help out." Nathan, who knew about my relationship with Bianca, wasn't shocked. But Rachel was a different story. Seeing my close connection with the company's leadership left her green with envy. Bianca quickly introduced me to Mr. Reed, and after a few polite exchanges, everyone settled into their seats. Standing at the front of the room, Bianca made an announcement, looking directly at me. "From now on, Vivian Summers will be in charge of this project. She's one of the major shareholders in our company, and she's more than capable of handling this." There were a few murmurs of surprise. Some people were clearly unaware that I was a shareholder, but with Bianca's word, the decision was final, and polite applause followed. Rachel, however, was livid. She shot up from her seat. "Miss Sterling, you can't just replace me like this. I've been working on this project for months. We're almost done, and now you're handing it over to Vivian? She's only been here a few days, and before that, she was just a stay-at-home mom. She'll ruin everything." Of course, it wasn't the project she cared about. What Rachel was really panicking over was the loss of that $1 million payout she and Nathan had been planning. Bianca was about to respond, But I stood up, cutting her off. Rachel, I said calmly, just because I wasn't working doesn't mean I'm incompetent. I've got this project down cold. Besides, this company belongs to me and Bianca. Who exactly do you think you are, trying to tell us how to run things? Nathan then turned to me, all smiles, trying to play the part of a respectful professional. Vivian, we're so happy to have you on board for this project. Since Rachel and I have been handling it from the start, why don't we continue leading it? We're nearly done, and you can check in whenever you like. Smooth talker, that one. But it wasn't going to work. Before I could respond, Mr. Reed stood up. Nathan Summers, you're fired. You and Rachel have been caught embezzling from the project, and I have all the evidence I need. You'll both be facing legal action. Nathan's confident facade cracked. Rachel's face turned ghostly pale, and she started shaking. Everyone in the room could sense their guilt. Nathan tried to say something to smooth things over, but before he could, 2 police officers entered the room. Nathan Summers, Rachel Sinclair, you're both under arrest for embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent. As they were being handcuffed, Rachel snapped. She screamed at me like a wild animal. Vivian, you vile woman. You spent 7 years raising a kid that's not even yours. Don't think for a second you're better than me. Karma's coming for you. I smiled and waved. Karma? Maybe. But it looks like yours got here first. After they were escorted out, the rest of us got back to business. Mr. Reed and I spent the rest of the meeting going over the next steps for cleaning up the mess Nathan and Rachel had left behind. As the meeting wrapped up, Mr. Reed shook my hand, clearly grateful. Vivian, thank you for stepping in when you did. Without you, our company could have been sunk by this project. I smiled and shrugged. It's part of the job, Mr. Reed. We're all in this together. After that, I threw myself into my work. I was determined to rebuild the project and ensure everything ran smoothly. But I never forgot my promise to Lily's mom. We had become close friends, often discussing both personal and professional matters. She was even considering partnering with my company for some future ventures, and she made it clear that she trusted me completely. Lily thrived under my tutoring. Her grades soared, and she finished all her elementary school coursework early. Sometimes she'd mention Carter in passing. After the divorce, Rachel pulled Carter out of his private school. Now, with both Nathan and Rachel in jail, Carter had been passed around between relatives. Margaret had disappeared completely. I could only smile at the thought. It wasn't my problem anymore. Back when I was still trying to make things work, maybe if Carter had shown me even a bit of kindness, I might have kept helping him. But he'd sealed his own fate. My 7 years as a stay-at-home mom were over. It was time to move forward. With each passing day, I felt stronger and more empowered. I was falling in love with the version of myself that I had reclaimed. And honestly, life had never felt better.